So in this video, you will come to know what is Docker and what is Kubernetes, just like what is Apple and what is an apple pie. So let's get started. So Docker is a container. It's just like we can compare it to an apple, right? And Kubernetes is a container management software, just like we have an apple pie, right? So it is never apple versus apple pie, right? It is always that apple goes inside an apple pie. Similarly, we have a Docker, which is a container, and then we have a container management software, which is Kubernetes. So Docker container runs within Kubernetes. Let's proceed forward. So it could be apple versus blueberry, right? Like which fruit do we want to choose for making our pie? Similarly, we could choose one of the container runtime environments, which could be Docker, or Rocket is another container runtime environment that's very famous. So now you have selected your fruit, right? Like you have selected your container. You might want to choose what type of a pie you want to make. So you might want to make an apple pie, or you might want to make a blueberry pie. Similarly, you have a choice of what type of container management software you want to use. Do you want to use Kubernetes, or you want to use another software which is Docker Swarm, that is an enterprise version, enterprise software that you get from Docker. So now let's try to understand Kubernetes a bit in detail, right? By assuming that we have 4 components in our application. Number 1 is backend server, second is front end, that is UI, third is database where we store our data, and fourth is cache, just to improve the performance. Now you want to package all of these 4 components within Docker containers, right? So that all the dependencies and all the libraries and everything goes all together and is packaged together in separate containers. Now to run these so this is like having apples now, right? But you can straight away run these containers as such in production, because you need to have some environment and some other things to be able to run all of these containers, right? So stuff that you would need to be able to run these containers is like you need to have some load balancers, which would enable like outside traffic coming in, and also like the traffic within these components would be load balancing within these components. And then you might want to have certain monitoring in place, that is like if some like container goes down, you would want to have some alerting and all, right? Similarly, you might want to scale one of your components depending upon the load, how much load you're getting. So you might want to like have 3 or 5 replicas of the backend server, and then you want to have your environment secure, and you want it to be configurable, because you might want to deploy it in staging and the production, right? So you would also want support for security and configuration. So it is just like you have apples, but to make an apple pie you need other things, right? Like you need sugar, you need flour. So if you're liking the video so far, please subscribe to my channel and also give a thumbs up, because it motivates me a lot. Let's continue. So we had like the basic things, right, which we saw. Like we just need, we along with the containers, we need few other things to be able to deploy our application. So all of these things, having functionality of load balancing, monitoring, scaling, and security and config, this is all provided by Kubernetes. So all of your containers, they go into Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is a software to which we give a blueprint, which is sort of a recipe, right? So if you see on the right, I have highlighted few things in the recipe, or which is the blueprint, that we want 5 replicas of a particular container, and the container's name is node app, and the image is backend latest. So what it will do is, when I give this recipe to Kubernetes, it's going to create 5 replicas of the backend server. I've not included the full recipe because like there would be there are a lot other moving parts, like having configurations for load balancer, monitoring, scaling, and like other components also, like front-end cache and all. But you can see how easy it is to provide configuration to Kubernetes. And now Kubernetes knows that what all containers it needs to start based on the image names that you have provided, and it provides you out of the box functionality to manage these containers, right? So out of the box functionality is load balancer, like providing like support for load balancing, monitoring, scaling, security, and configurations. So these are just to name a few. there are a lot of other features that are provided by Kubernetes out of the box. Now you have your ingredients for the pie ready, you have the recipe ready, but you need to bake it, right? To bake it, you would need to have an oven, right? So you could have an oven from LG or from Samsung. Similarly, Kubernetes is a software, right, which manages your containers, but you have to run that software on some hardware. So you can choose your infrastructure from either Amazon Web Services or or Google Cloud Platform. You can also have your own infrastructure, or there are other numerous cloud platforms that provide support for Kubernetes. So just like even if you have ovens, you need to still pay for the electricity and maybe certain other things more like maintenance and all. Similarly, while you are running Kubernetes on any of these cloud platforms, any of the compute or like hard disk like storage and all, or maybe some other things like DNS management or firewall and all, you have to pay for all of that stuff. So let us summarize Kubernetes now. So Kubernetes is a software which manages containers, right, or orchestrates the containers. It's a software, so it needs hardware or nodes or machine to run upon. Most of the times it will be running in a cloud environment. You could also run it on your own hardware, but it is a bit tedious to set it up. So there are many free utilities that come out of the box with Kubernetes. That's like load balancing, scaling, monitoring, security and configuration, managing of storage, and few other things, right? So these are just a few that I've listed here. So you pay your cloud provider for things like nodes on which Kubernetes runs, like storage, DNS, firewall, etc. But Kubernetes itself is open source and you don't pay for it. So I hope this gives you an idea what is a Docker, which is a container, and what is Kubernetes, which is runs the containers, like manages and orchestrates the containers. And if you like my video, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Thank you.